Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'd just like to start by introducing my wife, who's going to be flicking through the slides and who's been with me the whole way through this scholarship, helping out. My name's Rob Cook. I'm here to present on my findings for my 2011 scholarship. My scholarship's looking at innovation and technology in the beef industry, and more specifically, I was looking at ways of combining technology into a beef operation that would give somebody like me, an injured farmer, the ability to remain productive. I'd just like to start by acknowledging and thanking Nuffield Australia. They've gone well beyond their duties as an organisation in supporting me, and I wouldn't have got through it without their support, and likewise with my sponsors. The two sponsors were the Northern Territory Government's Department of Resources and the ANZ Bank. I think it's hard to explain where someone's headed without knowing where they've come from. So Supplejack Down Station is situated 735 kilometres northwest of Alice Springs. We're in the southern BRD, Northern Tamai region of the Northern Territory. My grandparents, Bob and Bill Savage, started Supplejack in the early 60s. The name comes from a native tree found in that area, and my parents started the family partnership in the 90s, and this is where my involvement started with the family business. We're a grass-based breeder operation with about 8,000 head of short-horn Brahman cross cattle. Over recent years, we've introduced the Droughtmaster bulls into our breeding program. This crossbreeding gives us the added benefits of increased hybrid vigour while maintaining easy access into the live export trade, which is generally your grey Brahmans. We maintain our breeding program by retaining our own replacement heifers, and all other young cattle are sold into the export market. We receive the tropical wet season, which generally falls between December and March, and our average rainfall sits in between 18 and 24 inches. The bulk of our cattle work is done between April and August, and one of the major benefits of being a family operation is the ability to rely on the entire family, from the women working in the weaner camps to the kids swinging up the back leg during the branding. It truly is a team effort. We supply between 1,800 and 2,000 head of feeder cattle into the live export trade. It's a 1,000 kilometre truck ride for our cattle from Supplejack to Darwin, and the cost of this generally averages out about $50 per head. Now the live export trade's been under a lot of scrutiny over the last 12 months, and it's a debate I'd love to get into, but probably better left for another time. If, however, we lost this trade and we were required to sell them to the domestic market, we would see an increase in costs of up to $85 per head, and on the welfare of the animal side of things, our cattle would be required to stand on the truck for an extra 2 days. The isolation of Supplejack really is emphasised due to the condition of the roads. This limiting factor single-handedly pushes up the expense on all road freight, from fuel trucks coming in to road trains with cattle going out. The road closures due to the wet season limit our access to markets, especially the early markets in January, and it can often leave us cut off from services from anywhere from December till March. Due to the size of Supplejack, pest animals raise their own issues, the likes of brumbies and camels. They raise their own issues in the fact that they are competition in feed with our livestock, and land degradation. And this is often only combated through an unwanted, generally, culling program. Aerial mustering using helicopters and gyrocopters offer the most efficient and practical means of transport to cover the many kilometres involved during the mustering season. Unfortunately, it is a high-risk job. Regardless of the challenges we face as a business, nothing could have prepared us for the challenge we faced as a family. In September 2008, I was involved in a helicopter accident while mustering cattle. We crashed at about 20 past 10 in the morning, and it wasn't until 6 o'clock that night before I was plucked out of the scrub, and I was airlifted down to the Royal Adelaide Hospital, where I spent 9 weeks fully ventilated on life support, and just under 12 months later, my young family and I finally returned to Alice Springs, and I guess it was here that I felt the full impact of my disability. I was unsure of the future. I was unsure of the possibilities of returning to such a remote station, and the word productive certainly didn't fit into my vocabulary at the time. This was truly my life's toughest challenge, but it was also one that was made a lot easier the day I received a phone call from an NT scholar from up in the Alice Springs area, Mr. Ashley Severin, and his encouragement to take that first step was one of the greatest decisions I've made since the accident. It was a decision, though, that took a lot of careful thought and took a lot of careful planning, and to go down this scholarship path, it required a lot of steps in place, and there was no real easy way over it. Likewise, there was no easy way under it. Like every other scholar, I had to go straight through it. So my Nuffield scholarship started out with the aim of gaining a better understanding of the live export trade, industry issues and market access, along with investigating the value-adding opportunities that a large-scale cattle station like ours could take advantage of. It was early in the stage of my scholarship it became evident to me that there was a greater issue at hand, and so I altered my study topic slightly in the hope that rather addressing just industry issues, I could address some issues and barriers that affected injured farmers. Unfortunately, each disability is different and unique, so to broaden my study topic to help other farmers, I focused on 4 key areas: mobility, modification, innovation, and a combination of information and assistive technologies. So what is the issue? It's no secret that Australian agriculture offers a high risk for work-related injuries. The Australian Bureau of Statistics have stated that for every 1,000 farms, there are between 200 and 600 injuries each year. The cost of this to the agriculture sector is estimated at $400 million. These figures, along with the growing demand for food and fibre, along with limited labour availability, emphasise the importance of keeping experienced producers producing and not limiting them or not losing them at the hands of an injury. This graph outlines the ageing population in Australian agriculture, and it outlines that we have many old farmers and very few young farmers coming through the ranks willing to take over. There's also studies that have shown that the beef industry is winning the race of getting the oldest the quickest, and this may explain the issues with adopting new technologies. So my Global Focus program started in March, April 2011 at the Contemporary Scholars Conference in New Zealand, and we then travelled to countries including Brazil, Mexico, the USA, Canada, Scotland and France. I'd never travelled overseas before, so one of the real eye-openers was when we landed in Sao Paulo, Brazil. It's one city that has a similar population to that of the whole of Australia. Now, one of the major advantages that Brazilian agriculture has over Australia is the availability to a labour source. We visited a 100,000 hectare farming operation called Guas Verde outside of Cristalina. It produces the likes of corn, soybean, sorghum, guava, tomatoes, and a host of completely undercover 10,000 head feedlot, which is a valuating business that utilises the byproducts of their cropping enterprise. A lot of nearly every farm we visit in Brazil, to me, seem to run on manpower, and this is evident in the employment of 1,300 people at the Guas Verde operation. After completing the GFP, I returned home to Superjack to undergo another challenge, which was to assist my extra funds because of my disability. And it was a charity walk from Superjack Station into Alice Springs, a journey of 735 kilometres. I was able to manage 30 kilometres a day in my wheelchair, and it took me 24 days to get into town. I was completely humbled when Nuffield scholar Dave Brownhill and his wife Liz travelled from New South Wales all the way to Superjack just to turn around and walk the first leg with me back in, and it was very humbling, and it also made it very exciting for me. And again, for the final chapter, I think it was the last 10 kilometres of the walk, when Nuffield, Jim Gelch and Ashley Severin met me on the road and walked the final chapter into Alice Springs. And I think this emphasises the support the Nuffield family offers their scholars. So, with money in the bank and my bags packed, I headed back over to the US for my individual study. The first thing I looked at was working dogs. Now, working dogs in a beef operation is not a new concept, but in aiding somebody with a disability, it could mean the difference between sitting on the fence and remaining productive. So I went to Louisiana and caught up with Len Dalton. Now, my attraction to Len's operations wasn't the fact that he could train the perfect dog. It was his aim in trying to breed the ideal working dog for cattle. So he crossbreeds a 7/8 Border Collie with a 1/8 Pit Bull Mastiff. This results in a formidable working dog with a major benefit. The major benefit to me was their ability to copper flog and basically handle punishment from cattle and bounce back. Therefore, you wouldn't be losing time with a dog on a chain. He can handle a bit of a kick about the ears and that sort of thing, and he'd work for longer for you. Another part of Len's operations was the buggy that he went to work in, and I could see a major potential in this type of vehicle modified for somebody in my situation. I then went into Oklahoma and caught up with this guy here, Tom Hines, who is just absolutely amazing. In 1977, Tom had a stroke which left him refined to a wheelchair. The guy can't speak, he can't whistle, he can't make any audible noises whatsoever, but through the use of one form of assistive technology called a message mate, which is a little touchscreen computer, he sits on his lap, and with the help of his wife, he pre-records commands. And this computer, basically, he goes into the paddock, he taps the screen, and then that amplifies the command to his working dogs. So Tom can shift cattle around his farm. He actually shared this photo of him doing a dog working exhibition at the Houston Rodeo. And I think it just it outlines the importance of assistive technologies for people with disabilities, and this has basically given Tom his ability to remain productive on his family farm. Meeting someone like Tom really inspired me to get involved with dogs. His example has shown me that there is ways around things, and so I plan on implementing dogs within my workplace. We run a fairly intense weaning program at Superjack where we'll tail all of our weaners for up to 10 days into a paddock on horseback. Because I can no longer ride a horse, implementing dogs would give me the ability to stay busy in the family business. Now in the Northern Territory, another section I looked at was cattle handling equipment and designs and that sort of thing. Now in the Northern Territory, portable panels are often used as they give you the ability take the yards to the cattle to avoid walking cattle unnecessary kilometres. Now, it's not so much the importance of or the style of panel you use, it's the design in which you construct your yards that'll change one or two things, either the cattle working for you or you working for the cattle. So I investigated different yard designs and the importance of it to be able to take this information home and implement it within the station. And while I was in the US, I made contact with Dr. Temple Grandin, who's she's widely known, but she's a professor in animal science at the Colorado State University now. Because of her speaking engagements and my inability to travel long distances at the drop of a hat, we were unable to meet face to face, but kept in touch through telephone and email. And her influence on the industry and yard design and animal handling has become something of a global phenomenon. A couple of the things I found very interesting that Temple Grandin has proven. One is that a curved race and rounded yards result in less stress to the animal and require less effort for the operator. Now, the other thing I found interesting, she's done studies on the level of noise and how it affects animals. Simple things like yelling, whistling and slamming gates affect the cattle in the way that they excite the animal, which raises the heart rate, and this adds to the level of stress endured during handling. And obviously stress has a direct impact on the amount of weight loss an animal has during handling. So with this understanding of how yards affect cattle and how working with them affects the bottom line in weight loss, I had to try and find a way for me to find a solution to operate a set of yards. So I travelled down to Kansas and met up with John Mulligan, who is the owner of Molly Manufacturing. He's also the creator of the well-known US turret gate. Now, what excited me about this system, it's completely hydraulic driven. There's no manual handles on any of the slides. Everything is operated through a remote control. This remote gives you the access to operate the turret gate, which is outlined there. It works in a 360-degree swivel, I guess you could call it, and that has the ability to slide back through itself to pick up the next lot of cattle. So you can be up to a distance of 100 metres away from these yards and still operate cattle from the force right through the race up into the crush. I can see potential for this type of technology, not only for injured producers, but for the ageing population of cattlemen. The older generation, I think, would find it a lot easier to stand under a shady tree and push cattle up a race as opposed to being amongst the dust. After investigating numerous forms of automation and that sort of thing, I travelled through. I had to try and work out what system would best suit my type of operation. So we travelled through to different forms of automation, from robotic dairies to egg packing plants to robotic factories, and I was comparing the three different types, the likes of pneumatics, hydraulics and electric actuators, to which one would work best in a remote application like circle jacks. And after investigating it, I found it was clear cut that pneumatics would best suit our type of operation. They offer a lot more than the likes of hydraulics. The main one I found was the safety side of it. It's easier to store gas, and if there is a power loss, you can still operate it, limited of course. But the safety side of it is there's less chance of fire, but the main one was their impact on cattle. The pneumatics absorb force and compared to hydraulics, which transfer force. Obviously it's a welfare issue. Modifications really depend on the user and the level of ability that user has. So I travelled throughout the US meeting with other injured farmers and learned their solutions to some of their problems, and this gave me contacts and resources that I could bring home and apply within my own workplace. Something that what I found was in the US, people in agriculture are way more resourceful and innovative than the wider population, and we saw some amazing examples of how to modify your workplace. So coming home, I joined forces with John Deere Australia and a guy called Dave Courtholt from Point Grip Solutions in Melbourne, and we started the tedious task of adding all sorts of forms of technology into a John Deere Gator, which the main aim is to give me the ability to get back around the farm, and it'd give me the ability to chuck the working dogs on the back and stay active. So there's all forms of technology. There's a Russian steering aid that we found and are applying, and it basically eliminates the use of the steering wheel and brings all the controls back to a joystick operation similar to my wheelchair. Little things like lights and aircon will run through a multi-sequencing switch in the headrest, which I can headbutt. So no doubt I'll be turning aircons on and off, going across the paddock. Something else that really excited me was remote monitoring and automatic drafting. However, through my travels and contacts, I was unable to find one company that combined both technologies. However, something I found was a company in Australia called Precision Pastoral, and they've applied 3 technologies to create the remote livestock management system. They use the NLIS tag and the animal's ear for ID. They use a remote monitoring device to transfer information back to the main computer in the homestead, and a specially designed automatic drafting gate. Now, I can see full potential in this type of technology for somebody like me. This will give me the ability to draft out unwanted characteristics in a herd while I'm still sitting in the aircon at home. Basically, you set this system up at your watering points, and as cattle come in, they walk over the weigh scale, their ID's read through their tag, and then depending on what information you put into the remote monitoring device, it'll then draft, that'll determine which way the draft gate will draft cattle. One very quick example would be for selective joining, where you could sit at home and as your breeders are walking into water, you could draft your bulls off. I can see a lot of potential in this type of technology. In my conclusion and to my findings, my recommendations are simple. Work safe, work hard, and remember to be able to work in agriculture is a privilege. It shouldn't be looked at as a job. And by combining industry modifications and technologies, we've found a way where we can retain our injured farmers, therefore keeping experienced producers producing. I think that's about me. If anyone knows anybody, feel free to hand on my contacts if they think I can help them in any way. And I'd also just like to thank these guys. This is the guys I travel with in my GFP, and I see 4 of them have travelled back to be a part of today, which means a whole lot to me. And also thank you to them for helping me up and down way too many stairs and involving me in every activity that we underwent in the GFP. I'd also like to thank my carers, my sister Loretta and her partner Jake for the GFP travels, and my cousins Luke and Crystal for the individual study, and also my 2 children who seem to bounce off everything we've undergone over the last 18 months, and also my beautiful wife, who without her I wouldn't have been able to achieve anything since I broke my neck. So, thank you very much.
Congratulations, Rob. Just obviously with technology like you've been looking at, it doesn't come cheap. Is there any forms of grants or access to helping finance some of these innovations in your operation?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure on the answer to that. I know when you're looking at a remote power source like the solar and that sort of thing, there's definitely government assistance in that, but I don't think there's any assistance in setting this sort of technology up at the moment, not that I've heard of.
Rob, we've certainly looked at the remote monitoring opportunities at home, and the biggest constraint that we're finding is that most of it is still based on the UHF system rather than satellite or VHF. Did you find anybody anywhere doing anything a little bit more advanced, particularly the satellite stuff?
Not so much in the satellite. Most of what I saw was still going through the UHF system, and that's how this remote livestock system, that management system, it runs through UHF as well. I know that some places have problem in the remote areas of their property, even with UHF. If they don't have their own repeater station, they can't get the message over long distances. But yeah, I know that a lot of farming enterprises work on the 3G network on the telephone, and it makes it easier, which is one of the restrictions in such a remote area.